not about what you know, who you know, or how you do it, but necessarily what you're choosing to do. And so if you're choosing to try, choosing to make a difference, choosing to push through it, then that's the important part because you are subject to fail. And how you do it can change. All those other things are irrelevant if you can make a different choice every time. And so to continue to choose something and continue to choose it over and over again, regardless of the outcome, because you want to keep trying, is the biggest success you can have. The biggest motivating factor you can have is your choice. And I always tell people with addiction, it's like, as long as you stay sober, you keep the right to choose. The moment you put something in your system, you are now choosing that chemical, and everything about you becomes about that chemical. And so, as long as you keep that chemical out, your choices are yours, and you can choose whatever you want.
We are continuing to explore the Texas Specialty Court programs in Season 2 of the show. But before we get started, there's one very big announcement in case you missed it. The podcast has been rebranded to Justice and Recovery. Same show, just different name. This is the official podcast sponsored by the Texas Association of Specialty Courts, which is a statewide nonprofit that builds and strengthens Texas specialty courts through collaboration, advocacy, and education. During this podcast, we will focus on real people doing real work and making a real impact. I am your host, Liz Wiggins. I volunteer on the task board and have been elected to serve as the communications director. On today's episode, we will be talking with Stephen Ellison, who is a licensed chemical dependency counselor in Midland County. He works as the intensive outpatient program counselor for several specialty court programs. Stephen's career journey was a big surprise to me, but his dedication and passion for the work he does is just a part of the person I have come to know. Now, you'll get the opportunity to know more about him too. Don't forget, you can join our conversations by sending me questions to ask future guests or provide feedback on past episodes to justicerecoverypodcast@gmail.com. And as always, please help us by liking and subscribing to the show and sharing our show with people you know. Now let's get started.
So my name is Stephen Ellison, and I am a licensed chemical dependency counselor. I work with the Midland County Adult Felony Probation and Drug Court. I guess you can look it up on the Midland County website for the drug court program, as well as the Midland County CSCD probation. I'm originally out of Dallas, and I've been in Midland for about 11 years now. I've been a restaurant manager for the majority of my life, and I've recently transitioned about 9 years ago, into counseling. I came into a specialty court about 3.5 years ago. Just followed one of my actual supervisors, followed her to that role, and loved it ever since.
Where are you from?
So I grew up in Corsicana, a small town south of Dallas. Moved around throughout high school. Been to school in Tyler, been to school in Dallas, back to school in Corsicana. I graduated in 2002. Kind of played around with college a little bit the first time there. Worked full-time at a restaurant for about 10 years. Straight through, that was the first job in high school, and kind of stuck with it. Kind of took that route versus paying attention to college, along with partying, of course. And at that time, wasn't really too sure what I wanted to do. So I studied law for a little bit, studied education, went back to law, studied business, but ultimately working won. So I stopped going to school in about 2005 and just focused on work. Became a restaurant manager and kind of did that for a number of years, back and forth all over Texas, from Waco, Killeen, Dallas, finally out to West Texas, where I always tell people I was tricked. I was told coming to West Texas I would be in Lubbock, and I wasn't. I was in Seminole, which is about 2 hours away. Did that for about a year and did a commute, and then finally just stayed in Lubbock for a while and then moved to Midland when I met my fiance. And so at that point, I got tired of the restaurant business and tried my hand in the medical field. Did some patient referrals, patient assistance, and lucked up on the counseling course at Midland College just by helping this kid that was struggling with substance abuse. And at that point, just making phone calls, connecting family members with treatment centers, and I called the right person or the wrong person, depending on how you look at it. And she just told me she was the director of the Millen College program at the time. And she just told me I should really check it out because she was impressed with how I handled connecting the family and the treatment center and working with the kids that were struggling at the time. And when I checked it out, it piqued my interest in counseling, and I went to school for a year because of all the previous school experience I had, and here I am. I started working at a residential treatment center in Midland. It's called Springwood Center, and during my practicum, before I was even licensed, I was still in school, just with the way that I was eager to learn and my work ethic and how I got along with the staff. They hired me right out of school before I even graduated. And then they helped me with taking my licensing exam. I did all of my CI hours through them. The whole 4,000 hours were through them. And I mean, they gave me my start. And so I did every level of care with them, detox, residential, outpatient. I mean, I kind of fell in love with outpatient just because of the freedom and the real life application of what the people are learning. You get to see them actually grow when they get to go apply it, come back and tell you, hey, it worked. Hey, that suggestion you made, or hey, when I learned how to do this, I was able to go use it and come back and tell you about it. So it was pretty cool.
So I have to tell you, not being originally from Texas and still after all these years being here, still not knowing lots of parts of Texas, I would totally have fallen for that whole, you're gonna be in Lubbock 2 hours away. That's like Austin. That's even a bigger distance than Austin to San Antonio. Those are two very different cities, and are not, usually what you would consider being in the other city. They're not close enough to be considered that, right? So
Yeah.
that is hilarious. But you've kind of gone around a lot, it sounds like, in Texas and different opportunities in your career. I have to ask, do you enjoy traveling?
I love it. Any reason to travel, and if I can drive, it's even better. So
So
I
you
like
like road trips?
I like road trips. I would kind of just like to be in control of the ability to stop. Because I like to check out like small town shops and just malls anywhere and just to come and go as you please. So I love to travel, but I like that control part of it to not have to wait around and say, oh, I can't get there. I can't go check this out. So it's pretty cool.
What's
Um,
your favorite place to travel so far?
I would have to say Hawaii. I do want to go back to Chicago, but Hawaii's been my favorite. I did
Nice.
Honolulu for Christmas in 23, so it was an amazing experience.
I have not made it to Hawaii yet, but I will tell you it is on my list. It looks beautiful and a wonderful place to be. So the fact that that's your favorite just tells me even more. I need to move that to a much higher spot on my travel list. What about Texas? Like, what's your favorite place to be in Texas?
I'd have to say, oddly enough, Houston. Most people say the humidity is horrible, but I don't know. Houston just has this vibe to it, and Austin, but I think Houston's just a little more down to earth than Austin. But it has this vibe to it that I just love. I don't know. And weirdly enough, every time I've attempted to move to Houston, a hurricane stopped me. So I took that as a sign not to move there. But yeah,
That's a pretty big sign that maybe Houston's not for somebody, right? Just,
it is.
keep an eye on those hurricanes.
And I
That's
took
true.
that. So yeah, I'll visit, but I will not try to move. A hurricane stops me every time.
Yeah, that I could see how that would happen. Yes. So you mentioned a few things, and I want to dive into a little bit more into the specialty court programs that you work with. But before I do that, I want to know a little bit more about the role that you're actually in now. Can you share a little bit more about what it is that you do, like day to day?
Oh, so day to day for me, so I am a licensed counselor, and so I still have a caseload. I think my caseload now is up to about 30, maybe 32 ish. But besides seeing clients day to day, I work with the. So my actual position is through Millen County Adult Probation, and so all of my clients are on probation, and I work with their TAP program, which is the treatment alternatives instead of prison. And so with that program, having to be on probation, they have a underlying substance abuse issue. And whether we are referring them to some of the community resources or seeing them personally ourselves or just working with them on an intervention basis, that's covered under TAP. And that's just through the probation side. And then on top of that, the Midland County Drug Court is contracted with TAP. Well, I guess the other way around. TAP is contracted with the Midland County Drug Court to see to have that in-house treatment attached to drug court. So all of those clients filter through our TAP program as well. Of course, they have to be on probation as well to be in drug court. But their supervision is a little bit more intense, as well as their treatment is more intense, just because those are the more severe cases, I guess you can say. They are the high risk, high need cases that we see that are in the drug court program. And so for that, I'm a counselor as well. Majority of my clients are in adult felony drug court, since we do have 3 different drug courts under Judge Rainey. There's 5 different courts in Midland County total, but 3 of them that I work under Judge Rainey specifically. And those are DWI court, treatment transitional court, which we call TTC, and then adult felony drug court, AFDC. And so my role with that is just seeing clients and advocating for them in the court setting, treatment recommendations, interventions, things like that. When we go to court 2 days a week. So, and it's 2 days a week, just depending on the court they're in specifically. So it's not really every court 2 days a week, but they break them up so that we don't have to do it all week. Overall, that's my role. So we work in outpatient setting, and we do 3 different levels of care: regular outpatient, supportive outpatient, and intensive outpatient, which is the education and the groups and classes that they have to take. And so with that, again, that's probation and through the drug court, they filter into the same educational programs, but we see them on an intensity level differently based on their need or severity.
Are you involved in like the specialty court programs, like the staffings that the treatment teams have?
Yes, I am mostly in the adult felony drug court staffing, because that's the majority of my caseload is in that court. But yes, each of our counselors that are involved in drug court, and we have a team of 8 under our supervisor. Each of them have their own court that they're assigned to based on the caseload that they have, and they're involved in those staffings to make treatment recommendations, help with interventions, kind of communicate or advocate with the officers and the whole clinical team or whole drug court team, which consists of the judge, the bailiff, court coordinator. We also have the prosecutor, the district attorney, and the defense attorney. We have a person that actually tracks our data. Then we have the treatment team and the probation officers. And so collectively, we kind of provide that multidisciplinary team. And I mean, we all provided a piece of the staffing so that judge can make an informed decision before she even talks to the client.
I know you mentioned multiple court programs in Midland County, but can you actually just list all the treatment court programs that Midland County actually has?
So the 3 that are under Judge Rainey are the adult felony drug court, the DWI court, and then the treatment transitional court. Then we also have a veterans treatment court that is not under Judge Rainey. I want to say Judge Rogers or Judge Moore, maybe. And then we have a mental health court, which I think is Judge Lindemann. Don't quote me on that, I'm not sure. I'm not as involved in the other courts. I have had clients that were out of the veterans court, but none out of the mental health court.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're kind of available then to all the treatment courts in some way or another, like available, and it seems like you're other than the mental health court at this time, you've been able to provide services through TAP, I think is how you pronounce it, right? TAP, and it's TAIP is the acronym. I'm always stumbling over that word because I used to call it tape. And somebody looked at me funny and they were like, "What are you talking about?" So I'm still stumbling over it. That is through the probation department. Now, not all probation departments actually have in-house like a treatment provider. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
There are just a select few. and I don't know the requirements of who or why, but there are just a few. Dallas has some, I think Austin has some, and I'm not sure if San Antonio does, but Houston does. But yeah, not every county has an in-house treatment, and so we are lucky to have that because I mean resources are limited, especially in the more rural counties. Our resources are limited to treatment, so being able to provide that directly as a first intervention is very good and very helpful to the ones that are on probation because sometimes those interventions can make or break them being successful.
I agree. So I know you were talking about the treatment options that you provide through your work. For the specialty court programs, what kind of treatment options are available for the participants?
As far as from the community or overall,
Overall, just what kind of treatment options?
with what we utilize, our treatment options can consist of we try to start at the lowest level possible. So we want to give them an opportunity to learn and implement things as they are still free, to give them an opportunity to have someone supporting them, but still have the freedom to not be locked up or incarcerated. But our treatments do go up to incarceration, unfortunately, just based on what's available in the state of Texas, pretty much. So some of our resources, we do have a residential facility in Midland County. We have
Nice.
two in the Permian Basin that will do residential treatment. One of them is nonprofit, and the other one is I guess you could say, state-funded resource. And then we have several outpatient options. But then when we get to more severe, whether it be use or behaviors, through the judicial systems, we have CRTCs and SafePs and ISS, just as those treatment alternatives as well. And our court utilizes those as a stepping stone, I guess you can say, resort. So we wouldn't necessarily go straight to those programs unless we tried the lower levels first, and then we kind of go based on the intensity. So if they still struggle with given time, of course, and it just continues to increase and the behavior problems or the risk of catching new charges or anything like that increases, then that's when we use those more severe lockdown facilities. And they still offer treatment, but then they offer treatment and cognitive behavioral therapy as well.
You mentioned earlier how you fell in love with outpatient services, that freedom to be able to be in the community and still get the services. Do you find that the love of that is what's led you to the role that you're in now?
Yes, for the most part, you get that more. Well, of course, just kind of my background, I've always kind of had something linking me to want to do law, going to school for it several times and just kind of studying it a little bit here and there. And so being involved just on a different side kind of still, I guess, pulled me in. But as far as the treatment side, being able to see your clients struggle and show the progress on a week to week basis, day to day basis as they're learning. So you can see when the light bulb turned on, for instance, and then see how the practical application of it from their standpoint. In residential treatment, being in there, it's like they're protected. Yes, they're getting help. Yes, they're getting treatment, but they don't get to apply anything until they get out. And so they don't know if it's going to work. They don't know how they're going to respond or react because they're still in a safe space. But in outpatient, they go home and they're in those environments that are risky. They're around people that are still a risk or a threat to their sobriety, and they have to utilize what they've learned. And when they can do that and see the outcome benefits them, and that they can say, "Oh, hey, I can do this," then that's kind of that's what I like about it. Is like you get to see them really apply those tools.
Do you guys help with like mentoring programs or help people stay connected after they graduate out of the program?
Yes. So one of our community partners has our alumni program embedded into it based on one of our graduates of the program went to work for that facility and kind of just kept connected and built up our alumni program. And so part of our treatment is to get them involved from day one. So even before they start our program, we have our alumni come in and talk to them about the expectations. The first thought you have when you sign up for probation is old style probation. where you report once a month. You may do a drug test here and there, and that's it. No one's gonna check on you, bother you, or anything like that. Or, that was my experience anyway. And so it was like our alumni comes in and they talk to them about, hey, y'all report every week. These are what you're gonna expect to do. This is an intense program. Before you sign up for it, know what you're getting in. And so they get to hear from the people that actually either are going through it currently or have successfully been through it before they even start. We get them connected with those resources right off the bat. Not only that, but that same community partner is what we refer them as. They can help with housing, financial stability, clothing, furniture, like transportation. They help them get their license, their socials, birth certificates. I mean, they will help with anything. And so we really kind of encourage them to get connected with them right when they get started. So that way, any struggles that they can have, we can go ahead and start targeting those struggles and making it easier on the clients.
And that person who left Midland County probation and went to that community organization that you're talking about, that would be Jennifer McMorris, right?
Yes.
Which the audience, if they're interested, can go and listen to episode 8 and they can learn all about her amazing journey and the work that she puts into putting an alumni program together and the kind of support she provides to people who've gone through the treatment programs and are on their path to recovery and continuing that journey after graduation. So I'm just gonna put that little plug in there real quick. You're working with people one-on-one, and not just one-on-one, but in a lot of different ways, but you're working with clients daily, like you said. Can you share a little bit more about the kind of trends that you're seeing regarding the needs that people who are in these, just as involved people in these treatment programs might have?
The biggest need that we see, just based on being in the Permian Basin mostly, is employment and housing. So we really try to go out of our way to connect them with sober livings. I know we really work well with our officers to come up with budgets and game plans to help them either afford stable housing, find healthy employment. The biggest need is going to be that because, I mean, it's limited. And then Permian Basin is mostly oil field. And so coming right out of jail and getting on probation, the first struggle you're going to have is finding a good paying job that's not just a minimum wage or 9 to 5 that doesn't allow you to afford to live in Midland County. And so one of those needs is the biggest one is going to be housing and stability for them. So we focus on getting them connected with the sober living to get them started. We go as far as connecting with the local Salvation Army in case if there's no options in sober living, so they can still have a safe space to get started. And then we kind of build on that start. And then as far as the employment side of it, our bailiffs and our officers go out into the community and talk to different employers to see, hey, will you give our guys a chance? They're in drug court, they're turning their lives around, they're trying. And he really goes above and beyond that most bailiffs and court officers wouldn't do, I wouldn't say wouldn't do, haven't done in the past. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that we can see the connection with our people is they see people are advocating for them now that they haven't had in the past.
What about transportation?
Yes. So Milling has somewhat of a bus system, but it's not open late. It doesn't go to every area or corner of Midland, and then it's not as efficient as it probably could be, or as it is in bigger cities that I'm used to being around or being in. And so it works for what it's for, but it wasn't designed for how big Midland has grown. That adjustment is very, very, it's something that's needed, but I mean, I'm sure there's somebody out there working on it at some point. And if not, maybe they need to start. But that community partner, they have buses and vans that they go out and they help as well. They also go buy bus passes for that same transportation company, and they help like use it. And so they'll help you with the schedules, giving you a day pass, monthly pass for the days that they're not using their own transportation services, or if they are overbooked and can't, and you can use the bus system. They really go above and beyond their help. Yes, there's a disconnect or improvements needed, but we do what we can to work with what we have, and then we try to compensate it by connecting them with the right resources to kind of fill in those gaps. And even with our own groups of guys. And so one of the things that our DWI court through Judge Rainey, she's really big on making sure they understand that driving is a privilege, right?
Yeah.
And we've harmed that privilege when we caught the DWI or we lost that privilege. And so even when you come into the DWI court and your license with the state may be good, the Rainey has a no 90-day driving rule. That first 90 days in phase one, she doesn't care if your license is valid or not. You're in this program, you gotta wait. And what that makes you do is get connected, because then you have to talk to family members or talk to peers and get rides and understand that yes, you may be legal enough to drive, but you need to see what you risk. You need to see what that cost really is when driving that you took that driving for granted. And so that's one of the things that I know helps with our clients is when the courts talk to each other in the groups and in the meetings or whatever, who can't drive, they have someone that can and that's doing the same thing they're doing that can kind of help them out. And so it's establishing that peer connection that they may not have done otherwise. And they start right out the gate. And so it kind of helps fill in the gaps of those transportation issues as well.
You've mentioned multiple organizations in the community that are basically, playing a role in assisting the clients that go through these programs. Well, I was going to ask you to share a little bit more about some of these community organizations, but really what I want is for you to give a shout out to the community organizations that are making, an impact that you guys rely heavily on. If you could share a little bit more about them. And
Oh, most definitely. So the biggest one I would say is Thriving United, because they are an umbrella of everything from sober living to providing furniture for people that have houses to just keep them from sleeping on the floor, to providing financial assistance, to transportation assistance, to food, clothing, things like that. The Salvation Army in Midland that helps with providing beds when we call last minute and say, hey, we got a guy coming out of jail and we can't get him to arrange anything right now. Is there anything you can do to help? We work with the local. So I don't know if you've heard of Family Promise, but Family Promise of Midland, which is sober living for parents and like married couples and parents with young children that struggle or trying to get their lives back together. They play a big role in some of our participants' lives with helping them rebuild not only financial, but parenting, childcare, stability, just overall stability in the household. There's Midland Fairhavens, who is kind of the same. Both of those are basically like sober living environments, but they really enhance different parts of their program for the stability piece. And Fairhavens is, I believe theirs enhances the education side. So those parents that struggle or needed help or getting back on their feet, that really want to go back to school, they really help with that. We have a really big Oxford House community in Midland, and they do a great job of getting our guys and girls place. So we have a women's and men's houses in Midland. Even the sober communities, like we have a really big AA presence and NA presence in Midland. I say big, it's really decent. I would say it that way. But when they get connected there, those members of that community really kind of help and step up, and they provide transportation. They're on call for people that struggle when they get connected. And those meetings, all we hear about is how great those meetings are. I mean, the list is endless. I can't think of all of them, but the list is endless. I mean,
that's a pretty robust list, though. That is, I always like to talk about community involvement, the organizations that are really stepping up. I think it's so important to identify the resources that are in your community to help with our treatment court programs. And I don't think that there is a successful program that exists in Texas, a successful Texas specialty court program that doesn't rely in some way on another organization or group to assist. It really is a team effort that involves the community, not just the community nonprofits or non-governmental agencies or social service agencies that are assisting. It involves people who care, who are willing to volunteer their time and say this is worthy. This is a worthy cause to assist with. Let me help, because I'm assuming many people understand that when you're investing in these people, you're investing in your community, right?
yes,
These are your
absolutely.
people. Yeah. So when you can help them become sober and help them become productive members of society, of your specific community, it only benefits everybody. I love that. You're part of the treatment team, and we've talked to several people on this season of the podcast where, talking about the work that they do and the inspirational stories that they have and the challenges that they face. But one of the things we haven't talked about quite as much as I'd like to, although we have talked about it a few times, and so I'm going to talk about it again because I just think it's so important, is about burnout. It's about secondary trauma, how we're caring for ourselves when we're in this work and in this field and in this industry. I want to talk a little bit more about that. Can you share about what are some of the signs or indicators that, from your experience or from your knowledge, that kind of helps people in this field know, hey, you might be experiencing, burnout or whatever you want to call it, because there's so many different terms now. But whatever it is that you're experiencing, a sign that you need to take more time for self-care.
Oh yeah. So personal experience, I think I've experienced a little bit of that early on when I was with and still in my internship with Springboard. And I forgot those community partners as well. Springboard and Permeate Care are really huge in our community. But one of those things is when you are when you are working in this field and that counter transference, that you start to lose compassion or empathy with your clients, or you don't understand, or whatever it may be with that particular client, you can relate a little too much. Then that's a sign you need to probably take a break, step away, a mini vacation or something. When you can't have an unbiased point of perspective, then that's a problem. And so, me personally, when I got to the point where it was just too stressful, it was too overbearing, too overpowering, and my perspective was becoming unbiased with some of my clients, I knew I had to step away for a minute and take a break. And so, when I was at Springboard, they were kind enough, gracious enough to let me, basically I was trying to quit and they wouldn't let me. And what they did was they let me work weekends to still get my hours in, and it was a benefit to both of us. I was able to do the assessments for them on the weekends, and then I got my hours as a CI. It allowed me to step away a little bit and not have to deal directly with clients on a regular basis. And it was just like the paperwork documentation side of it, which is easy for a lot of people, but it wasn't that individual constant day in day out that was getting to me at the time. And I did that for about 9 months to kind of still get my hours, take that break, and then I went back to them again, so I technically didn't leave, but went back full time with them and finished out my CI, got fully licensed. And then I had a different perspective of things, and I was ready again, right? So it wasn't that I wanted to quit doing it. It was just I recognized that I needed a break. They were gracious enough to work with me on that and keep me in the field, but keep me connected and allow me to get things done while I was able to help them as well. But the biggest piece for that is when you see that happening, and I say see it happening as a supervisor, because my supervisor is amazing. When you see that happening in someone, point it out, stop them, talk to them, give them a mental day, a mental health day, or vacation, encourage, that separation of work and home, which my supervisor does a great job of that. She pays attention to us, which is why I followed her again. And everything I do as far as career wise is literally under her. And so my side jobs or whatever in counseling, I work with her to do those as well. But she really does pay attention to that. Hey, are you good? That was you had a long day today, or this week's been stressful. What do you need? It's time for you to take some time. You may need to utilize some vacation time, or even when we're not feeling well, hey, go home. We got it. We will take care of it. You go home. And she does that with every one of us, right? And so it's not just because I've known her in the past and we have that professional relationship, but it's just because she's that professional person and she's aware and alert. And even in herself, like she's able to we are allowed to call her out. It's like, hey, you may need take a break. It's been a rough week. Like, we got you. We'll cover you. We can step up and help out wherever you need us to. And so we really kind of pay attention to that so that we can avoid having that burnout feeling. Because when you don't, that's when it happens. when you know that someone is struggling and you don't step up to say, hey, let me help you, or hey, I got it, that causes the frustration, that causes the stress overload, the mental breaks, and things like that. Because it is a lot. We hear a lot of tragedy, we hear a lot of trauma, and we tend to take on some of that sometimes. And if you're not careful and process it correctly, then you take it on and you take it home. And now it's affecting not only your job, but your family.
You
And
know,
so you really have to have that disconnect, that outlook or that perspective to say, okay, I need time. I need a moment. I need a break. I need a day, a weekend, whatever it may be, and the support to do so.
I
And
like
so,
that last part and the support to do so. I think that that's one of the things that is hard for people sometimes themselves to recognize what's happening, but to have somebody in your life, preferably at your job, that will actually point it out to you and in a manner, in a way that is supportive, not attacking, not recognizing any of your flaws per se, not pointing out how you're doing something wrong or something like that, but rather as a support because it's absolutely natural and normal to get to that point of feeling burnout in this entire industry with the work that everyone does. It's absolutely normal. Sometimes people don't realize that and they just think that, okay, I'm just going to say this from my experience. I'm always like, oh, I'm like superwoman. I shouldn't have these moments, right? Like, I shouldn't feel tired. I shouldn't feel overwhelmed because my life is not nearly as bad, let's say, as, example A or whatever. So I don't have the right to feel the way I'm feeling, or I just don't feel like I have the time because my schedule's too busy or something. You could just fill in the blank here, but I've had those moments myself over the years, and I can just imagine because of the amount of heart that I've seen in you and in all the people that work in this industry, how hard it must be to recognize like, oh, wait a minute. I need to put my heart and my passion and my energy also into myself and not always into others.
yeah,
And that's a little bit harder because it feels selfish. It feels wrong. It's not natural for a lot of the people that are attracted to this field. But if you don't take care of yourself, then there won't be anything left of you to take care of anybody else.
that's
So
exactly true. And it's
yeah.
funny you say that way. I was watching a podcast. So another thing is like one of my goals is to go back to school and do marriage and family counseling and ultimately help with probably get licensed sex therapists. But one of the things that I've been following lately is other marriage and family therapists or marriage counselors and things like that. And one of the podcasts I watched, the counselor referenced that thought, that Superman thought, and he said that a lot of times in relationships, men do it more than women, but women do it as well. But the persona they take on as being Superman or Superwoman, and then he described it as you are not Superman. Superman
Yeah.
for you is a secondary persona, whereas Superman itself, his secondary persona was Clark Kent. He
Yeah.
was Superman trying to be normal, and we're normal trying to play Superman. He says
That's
so.
true.
He says so. You have to realize you're not Superman. It's like you're not that person. You are playing a role in that person, but that's not you. It's not natural for you. Your natural role is normal, normacy, whatever that looks like, but it's still not that superhero theme. And he was referencing it in just relationships and how we don't experience emotion or process emotion with our partners because we try to take on the world and show we're so strong. You
Yep.
say you're not that person. You say because then when you break, it's like, well, what's wrong with you? Because you break it. It's like, well, you're designed to break. You're designed to have depression or anxiety or mental health day. You're designed to have those moments to where you need a timeout or a break for yourself and have those emotions. It's like you're not designed to be invincible. It's like
That's
Superman was designed to be invincible, trying to fabricate those moments.
That is such a good way to think about that. That really is. And I think on point, especially with marriage counseling right there. Definitely on point. It really is. I think that the people who are attracted to this field, to be in this industry, are heroes in a lot of ways, right? And you step up and you want to do the work and you want to help others. And I think it's admirable. I think it's a part of what makes everybody so amazing in this industry. but you're not invincible. You don't have this endless amount of energy or this endless amount of empathy or this endless amount of patience or this endless amount of just feelings that aren't going to affect you, that you don't just have this emptyless bucket that you can just keep giving to others and not fill your own bucket too. I think that's really on point. That person sounds really interesting, and how he probably explains a lot of things. I'm sure he has a lot of good analogies. I like that. You mentioned about watching a podcast. Are there other things that you listen to, watch, read, like other things that you do to keep yourself like personally growing in this world?
Yeah, so besides watching podcasts sometimes, and it's weird because usually the podcasts I watch are related to the field I'm in or want to go in, and so they're all therapy related. So I guess that's my form of therapy sometimes too. Um, that and as far as education wise, like just new innovative ideas that people come up with as far in therapy, or just different approaches to how they utilize like CBT, how they utilize motivational interviewing, or the things that they do in their practices or with their jobs, and if they advertise it or they put it on social media, like those things I really love to kind of follow, just to see what else can I learn, what else can I do different, or what's out there, what changed to keep up with the growing that we do in this field. And then the any conferences, I love them. The education that we get from them, the connections we make, because they people come from all over, and they're doing things way different in the cities than we're doing them in Midland. And so I love attending those to kind of make those connections and meet new people and just different things. And my boss is great. She loves them too, but we have two completely different perceptions of them. She comes back with wanting to research everything, and I come back wanting to apply it. So it's like, you want to look it up, and I just want to do it. Let me try it out. We really balance each other out with that concept. And I mean, that's one of the things I enjoy working. She really encourages that growth in education. So that's one thing. And then just studying. I mean, and just different books that come out. I started reading this book now, and it's not really appropriate to say, but it is kind of an interesting look on self-esteem. But
Yeah.
it's called How to Unf Yourself.
I like those types of things.
And so I really like those types of books to kind of say, okay, well, let me look at that approach and see what they're talking about. So yeah, I'm looking at that. And then I've read, and I've even used this one with my clients. I learned at one of the conferences. And so one of the things with addiction comes underlining addictions that people didn't realize were a problem, and they start to come out. And so sex addiction has been one that came up recently with a lot of my clients. And so one of the things, the resources I came across and found was Jay Stringer is a therapist, and his book and program that he does is Unwanted, and how to heal your sexual brokenness. I think that's the title of the book. And it comes with a journal. I mean, you can get a journal to go with it to kind of work along with it. There's also a closed group that he offers through his online class and online program for people that are taking it, and then it's closed so that they have that anonymity. And so I've been following that type of thing. I even looked into taking his training to teach it more. I've referred it to a couple of my clients to read it just to kind of check it out and try to see if they want to take his actual 8-week course or 6-month course that he puts on for them. And so I've looked into things like that, just anything that can help me grow, but also that can help be useful in this field. That's what piques my interest. That's what keeps me going. So to kind of decompress, I watch crime TV and crime shows.
That's your decompressing.
That's my
Watching crime
decompression.
TV.
Yes.
That's hilarious. No, that is, I think that it's so important that people continue to grow, right? Because if you're not growing, then you're not providing the best to the people you serve. So
Yeah.
you've got to keep growing. Things change, knowledge about things change. There's so many different people in the world. And so knowing so many different ways of how you can serve them is only to the betterment of everybody, right? It doesn't
Yes.
you should not, it's not one size fits all. So the more you learn, the better. If it makes you feel any better, Brene Brown and Adam Grant, when I first came across them, they became my therapist. They don't know, we've never met. I've never, exchanged any words with them, but the amount of podcasting that I listen to and YouTube videos I could find might have risen to the level of being a stalker, but apparently it's allowed, so it's all right. Socially acceptable stalking.
Yes.
And yes, definitely for a good 18 months, I would say I had two really amazing therapists that did wonders for me. No, but seriously, you have mentioned your boss quite a few times, and you're just going to have to give a shout out to this amazing, wonderful person because she's making an impact. Not only can I tell that because you followed her multiple times, but what you describe about the kind of person who knows how to identify when her team needs something from her and to offer that support is really huge and crucial in management. And so you're just gonna have to give a shout out. Who is this amazing person?
So her name is Ashley White, and she's also a LCDC, and she has some other initials too. Uh, the alphabet soup we get, she has some of that. So yeah, her name is Ashley White, and she's been counselor, I want to say almost maybe 20. I don't know. I've lost track, but she's been there. She's been in the field for a while, so she
Yeah.
understands what she knows what she's doing, and she's very aware, and she's always growing. Like I say, she loves to research things. So every time we come up with something new, she's going to look into it. She's going to research it, and she's going to figure out if we can implement it or if we need to make changes or whatever that may be. So she's really great, but she's also really good at paying attention to her team. And I know one of the conversation I've had with her is one of her things that she does is she, I guess if she's been in that position before by other bosses, she ensures she doesn't put anyone else in that position. So I guess that makes her a really good supervisor, is that she's aware of what it felt like to be, I guess, taken advantage of or mistreated or undervalued or things like that. And so she goes out of her way to make sure she doesn't do it. So kudos to Ashley. Yeah,
Kudos.
she may not like that later, but she
Not
does not like
everybody
to,
likes to be in the spotlight, but you know
does
what?
not.
I remember Ashley because she was recognized by the Texas Association of Specialty Courts at one of their conferences, which means somebody nominated her and she
Mhm.
was selected. And I do want to put a little plug in here that nominations are now open year round for anybody who has an amazing manager like Ashley White and wants to go ahead and start nominating now. Now's a great time before they get selected for their awards, which will be handed out at our conference in March. And now I'm going to try to remember the exact dates of our conference, which I feel like I'm going to get wrong off the top of my head. I want to say it's March 24th through the 26th of 2025. And if
That
I
sounds
am
correct.
wrong at all, ignore this and go to our website to confirm the dates, which is at tasctx.org, www.tasctx.org, and you will get the for sure answer on our website. I remember that about her. That name definitely sounds familiar. And now I didn't know at the time how amazing she was, but the more you talk about her, I can see that that award was well deserved, it sounds like.
Yes.
Kudos to her. Kudos, Ashley. And we're almost done here today, but there are a few more questions I have. Just I think it's so important for people to understand is, every program has an idea of what success looks like. And I think that there's the idea of what is it to be successfully graduating from the program, right? You could put that on paper for every single program. I'm sure it's written somewhere in some document relating to each program that we have in Texas. But I like to hear from people who are part of these treatment teams explain what did they see in success? What are they seeing in the people who successfully graduate from these programs? What does that look like?
So to me, I always kind of try to reference back to remind people that we're still human, right? We're still flawed. We're still capable of mistakes. And so graduating from the program is great. Maintaining that sobriety is great, but some people still are going to slip up and make mistakes. So me seeing success is, how did you bounce back? What did you do? What the tools did you use? How bad did you let it get before you got back on your feet and got it back together? Because that shows me you learned something. Yes, you
Yeah.
slipped up. Yes, life still happened. You made a mistake here, whatever it may be. But whatever it is that you learned, you were able to fix it. You were able to use those tools and move forward. And that to me says that you were successful at some point. Because at the in the times before you weren't able to move forward. It was just a hole that you were digging deeper and you were able to fall down and dust yourself off, get up and walk it off, right? And so I tell people, they will ask me what happens when a client relapses after they graduate. Did they catch a new charge? Did they lose their family this time? Like they may have relapsed or slipped, but they got it together and they still have the support. They have a house now. They have a decent job now. Like they didn't lose everything. Yes, they made a mistake, but that makes them human. You know, the growth is the moving past it, the lesson they learn from it and how they utilize that lesson to continue to move forward. I was like, I always tell people, don't forget you're still human. Don't forget you're still capable of slipping. You're still capable of bumping your head, scraping your knee, whatever it is. But it doesn't have to be the end all be all, right? You can move past that, and how you move past that says a lot about where your growth is. And so to me, that's success, is being able to use those tools learned no matter what the situation and moving on. Like not getting stuck in that chaos and not going backwards, just keep moving forwards.
I think the term that describes a lot of that is resilience, right?
Yes, yes,
Someone's
absolutely.
resilience to just keep moving forward doesn't mean there's no steps backwards. It
Yes,
just means that they keep moving forward, they dust themselves off and get back up and keep going forward. And I think that the supports that are put in place during these treatment court programs are one of the biggest reasons why people can continue to be resilient, why they can move forward is having that support system in place and having the tools that you guys provide them with and learning how to do that in the community. The real life application, not when they're only in a safe spot, in a safe place, outside of the community, but when they're in the community, knowing how to actually apply these tools that are being provided to them really helps a lot. And I think that increases people's chances of success for sure.
yes.
Do you have anybody you've come into contact with that has like inspired you or just really left an impact on you, their story or their journey?
Not one person specifically, but just people in general. Like people show you like what they're capable of every day. And I'll tell you, like some of my youngest clients, and I have all the young ones, it seems like I have all the kids, the 20, the 19, 20, 22, 23 year olds, to see the growth they make. You know, the decisions they're making today, which even when I was that age, was like I may not have been in the same position they're in, but some of the decisions they're making today, I would have never thought to make. And so just to see their growth is motivating. To see their resilience is inspiring because some of my clients have been through so much
Yeah.
and they're still pushing through it. I know that the one thing I was told a long time ago that it's not about what you know, who you know, or how you do it, but necessarily what you're choosing to do. And so if you're choosing to try, choosing to make a difference, choosing to push through it, then that's the important part because you are subject to fail and how you do it could change. And so all those other things are irrelevant if you can make a different choice every time. And so to continue to choose something and continue to choose it over and over again, regardless of the outcome, because you want to keep trying, is the biggest success you can have. The biggest motivating factor you can have is your choice. And I always tell people with addiction, it's like as long as you stay sober, you keep the right to choose. The moment you put something in your system, you are now choosing that chemical, and everything about you becomes about that chemical. And so, as long as you keep that chemical out, your choices are yours, and you can choose whatever you want.
This has been such a good talk. I want to thank you for being on the show, taking the time to talk to us. And in fact, you're traveling right now, and you were still willing to come on the show. How is Las Vegas treating you?
It's been great. I've done some shopping. I don't gamble, so that I don't have to worry about that. But they're getting my money one way or the other. I've still done some shopping. but it's been a blast. I'm actually sitting at a restaurant now, and they were gracious enough to let me have my lunch and do this show today. So
Nice.
shout out to Maxie's is where I am.
Wow. Kudos to Maxie.
So yeah, it's been great. I think I'm gonna go try my hand at either this zip line because I feel like I'm gonna do something exciting when it cools down. May just be a
Nice.
little Ferris wheel, but we'll see what happens.
I am terrified of heights, so I wish you all the fun with that. I also don't gamble, but I do love the shopping and the shows in Vegas. So I am glad you're getting to travel once again. Before we go, the very last thing I want to ask you is if you have a quote or anything you want to share with our listeners that you think would help them with the work they're doing or people who are in the programs, inspiring them to continue, anything at all that you just comes from your heart that you want to share.
It's funny you asked because the quote on your email stood out to me today by Maya Angelou because I've told people that in the past that someone will always remember what you feel or how you make them feel. If you can make them feel empowered, if you can make them feel successful, if you can make them feel that they're stronger than they were when they started, then they're going to remember that feeling. They're going to remember you for that feeling. But the
Yeah.
quotes on your email, and I'm going to actually pull it up so I can get it right. That's
That
the
was pretty close, I think. That was pretty close.
Yeah, it says people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And that's by Maya Angelou, and it is so true.
It
Feelings
is.
leave lasting impressions.
I really live by that quote. I love it, obviously. That's why it's on my email. But I truly believe that. I think people also misremember things, but what they remember really clearly is how they felt.
Uh-huh.
They're gonna remember how you made them feel. And that whether it's good, positive, whatever it is, the anxiety, any of the feelings that they get when they're working with you, when they're inspired by you, whatever it is, those feelings stick with people. And I think it's so important that we remember that the things we say and do matter, but not as much as how we make people feel. I think the more we can lift people up, the better the world all around. Thank you so much, Stephen. You're always a joy to hang out with anyway. So I appreciate you joining us today. Enjoy the rest of your trip, and I will see you when you get back in Texas.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to our show. As a reminder, see our show notes to contact us and find links to information discussed today. You can also find a link to learn more about our annual training conference that will be held on March 24th through 26th of 2025. I'll be dropping another episode soon, so stay tuned and be sure to like and subscribe to our show so you'll be notified when new episodes are available.